All right. So, uh, as the members of the Silver Dawn Inquisition lay siege to the Platinum City, Yuza has been prepping her advance on Urion. But during such time, uh, there is a meeting that occurs behind closed doors, hidden from the prying eyes of the party. A meeting of the minds, two of the brightest wizards of this age. Yuza, how do you extend the invitation to Intivar that you wish to meet?
I don't. I just go.
You're just like
Sh-
teleport.
she doesn't have a choice. Yeah, kinda. Like,
Dope.
literally a property of the divination thing is that no one can hide from me. I want to find someone, I can.
Absolutely. Uh, right. So, she is in the midst of some kind of work, in her, tower, at an undisclosed location. Um, and you just appear within its walls, bypassing any warding that she had in place, as she
Wait,
just
hold on. I need to double check and make sure I actually have another slot to get me out if I do it that way. Oh, right, yeah. I forgot I have 9 level slots. I'm good. Sorry, keep going.
gotcha, gotcha.
Forgot how high level I was.
Um, so she seems to be like working on some sort of like experiment. Like within her chambers, there's like a large series of like crystalline tubes. You appear in place and like quickly take in your surroundings. There aren't in these tubes any other like clones like yourself. There appear to instead be some strange kind of like beasts floating in suspended animation. Like there's not fluid in these. They're literally like almost like suspended in crystal as if they were frozen in ice. Um, Strange arcane apparati cover the room. Notes scrawled across large boards that she's stuck upon her walls in this circular room. She seems to be like reading some notes on her latest experiment and just doesn't even turn to acknowledge you. She's just like, going to be honest with you, reclaiming the divination amulet and unlocking its powers. I was expecting you here sooner, especially after you had gathered so many other sources of power. Must say, you've delayed my expectations.
Well, with considering who I was dealing with, I thought no idiot would be so foolhardy as to come to you unprepared.
Hmm. I must say that your hypothesis bears merit and weight. It would be foolish to come to me unprepared, but I am glad that you, of all my creations, is not so foolish as to rush in without a plan.
So what is this you're trying to do then?
My work. After all, there are only so many mysteries that one can unravel in one's lifetime, and one must continue to never grow stagnant. These creatures each hold unique properties in their blood and flesh, and so my goal is to using the methods I've perfected with my experimentations into cloning, harness their unique traits for the enhancement of my own gains.
Very well. I suppose then I won't take too much of your time. I'll simply get right down to my points.
She puts down her clipboard and turns to look at you.
How long have you known I've been out there?
Uh, little over 2 years. Once you broke out of your containment, I knew that you were active, but I only really started paying attention to your exploits after you killed one of my principals.
I see. And did you feel anger, annoyance, pride?
Disappointment in my chosen successor and annoyance at the reclamation of the necklace. I would say pride in your ability, but that remained to be seen until you started gathering other necklaces. Then the hypothesis I had worked towards about the convergence became more concrete.
Well, to be fair, I don't think I could have taken Kilkias by myself, at the very least.
He always was a shrewd one.
Are you aware of his fate?
Oh, to be sundered by the Raven Queen and the souls within his necklace, I find such an act to be almost cathartic for a transmuter who sought to refine himself beyond the means of man and God. If there's anything to prove from this, it's that I too must watch my own hubris, so that I may not convince myself I am above the rules of governance that the world defines.
But ultimately, you disapproved of the method he went about it.
Yes, if I were to integrate a stone from the necklace into my physical being, I would not disperse it through myself as he did, making myself an amalgamation of souls, turning myself into the stone. That is just a recipe for disaster. Thing that I would more than likely do is attach it to my physical form, much as one would graft a arcane battery or apparatus, something I could draw power from, but I am not beholden to if there were such a backlash against my form.
I see. Give me 1 sec. I need to reread something real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So then, I believe I'm aware of why you created me, or at the very least, why you attempted to. I'm aware you tried to dispose of me. I, I can't say I harbor ill will for that, but I'm curious. Do you think your experiment succeeded, as far as I go?
Hmm.
Do you think I've reached the pinnacle of principled power?
That remains to be seen, but I can say this. To define one's efforts by failure and success is an arbitrary binary. The true measure of any self respecting arcanist, scientist, or wizard is that each thing that presents itself, whether to be considered success by the common folk or failure by the masses, is merely a learning opportunity. If I were to say that you were a success, that would mean that I have achieved everything I sought for. I would not continue to strive for new goals. You are knowledge. Plain and simple. Whether you remain a success or failure is up to your own judgment. I merely see you as progress, and one making significant strides at that.
I see.
For what it's worth, if it boosts your confidence, you have exceeded my expectations.
Appreciated, but I do not need the flattery. Had we
Just
met a few years ago, I probably would have accepted that with glee, if I knew what that was.
just double checking. Most children seem to require some need of reassurance in their abilities. I don't understand why.
Don't fully grasp the nature of family, at least not yet. I don't, and no offense, I don't honestly think I could see you as my mother.
She nods and is just like, I don't see myself as much of a mother either. I see myself as a creator, and quite frankly, I too have found the trappings of family to be boresome. Relationships come and go, people live and die, things fade. There's no real need in the social circles that most biological creatures require for sustaining their fleeting egos. The only thing that I really require as far as community goes are like minded peers, and even then, I don't hold the illusion of permanence.
What was, I keep forgetting, Galleon, my dad's name?
Hmm.
And yet during my creation, I believe you were, let's just call it, with Galleon. And yet after such a betrayal of him saving me, you didn't kill him. You merely imprisoned him.
It would be a
Hard
waste of
to not
potential.
see.
Galleon is brilliant. It would be a waste of potential to murder him.
And yet his potential rotted away in a prison cell. Well, multiple prison cells.
And yet his intellect thrives, and we still use his consultation to produce new means of divination. His
Hmm.
cooperation may not be forthcoming, but we are quite coercive. I could have killed him and reanimated him, but that would have left his mind fragmented, shattered, a waste of a being so brilliant. I will admit at one time there was what could pass for affection in me, much as one teacher revels in the accomplishments of their student. But as far as any physical dalliances go, it was merely that. Something to release stress, pass time, and engage in a new form of excitement and pleasure.
So then, his imprisonment was solely because of his betrayal of your trust. Certainly, after learning about me, you must have realized his efforts were fruitful.
Yes, I would say that the imprisonment was more of a means to keep him under more watchful eye while also utilizing his intellect. But upon realizing that his efforts to hide and secured what I had considered an experiment that had not met my expectations uh, began to show promise, I realized that his. I don't know necessarily. She like pauses and is like, I don't know necessarily if I would consider your growth to be an insight on his part into the nature of human interaction that would be considered insight, or if it was merely his divinatory magics that allowed him to perceive what you would become in the future. But I had to admit that he saw something in you that I did not, and that was a shortcoming on my part, but not one that I will make again.
So have you successfully made a clone that meets your expectations since me?
Uh, Several, but as I've stated, meeting my expectations is one thing, exceeding them is another, and I don't much care for stagnatory progress.
I
I
see.
will refine the process eventually, but it is always nice to, and she gestures at the crystals with all the creatures in them, distract oneself with side projects. If one stays too focused on a singular objective, one loses sight of all of the other potentialities for knowledge, education.
I must admit you're a lot more similar to myself than I thought you would be. I guess a lot more of your DNA was put into me than uh my brain always blanks on this name. Galleon. It always blanks on his name. I don't know why.
She is like, but of course, you are one of my cloned creations, and was the purpose of your existence was to thrive.
So I get abandoning me, but why did you leave Yarion to his own devices? Surely they wouldn't have survived long without a principal there. The barrier erected around the city to keep out the radiation would have faded eventually.
Say that I left it to its own devices. It's inaccurate. The tower remained there, the challenge remained open. Eventually, someone would have claimed the amulet and replaced Galleon. And it's not as if we didn't keep up the warding on the city. I made sure that the Abjuration Principal made frequent visits to the city to ensure the survival of its citizens. After all, there's nothing I hate more than wasted potential. If the citizens had died due to the influx of wild magic, then that would have been a myriad of individuals that could not be harvested for stones. Assuming,
See.
of course, they prove to be unfruitful in gaining higher understanding of the weave.
I can only assume you're aware of the group I now associate myself with, at least somewhat.
The
Are you
Silver
aware
Dawn
of their... Oh,
Inquisition.
yes. Are you aware of their overall mission?
Hmm. I can't say that it necessarily resonates with me, but I can understand why a person of fleeting ego such as Merritt Gilder and Talasoon gravitate to the idea of truth, justice, and the preservation of good and morality. The goal that they have to destroy and defeat Eclipse is short sighted. Do I feel that James. No, not James, you killed him. Edmund. Do I feel that Edmund, my little serpent, has outlived his usefulness? Do I feel that his mania slowly becomes a drain on my resources? Daily. But you are not ready to face him yet. If Edmund succeeds in his goals of resurrecting the Maw, that will prove a strain on my ability to have to deal with that. As I said, I can understand a creature such as the Maw wanting to devour, to consume, to know all that is, but in destroying everything, it leads a new level of entropy. Nothing grows, nothing thrives, nothing learns. It's a waste. Although, of course, there are worlds beyond this, so I would not be surprised if the Maw then gravitated to another sphere to consume, devour, etc., and progress its advancement of knowledge. But to destroy a sphere would be to rob it of all its potentiality.
So even knowing Eclipse's true goal of the Maw, or perhaps you were there when it was decided. I don't know. But regardless, you decided to join and aid, to an extent, I'm sure, a group with such a wasteful goal. Surely there must have been some outweighing benefit.
At the time, that was not Eclipse's goal. Eclipse, at its foundation, at its core, when it was founded long ago by mad cultists and zealots who sought to control and wage war, their goal was the inevitable resurrection of the Maw, to sow fear and discourse, and to grow its power so that it may break its fetters. That was their design. However, over time and through corruption, political machinations, scheming, etc., the usual, Its goal had shifted. No longer did they wish to resurrect their dark god, they sought it as a waste to see the world destroyed. They instead saw more potential and control to guide political forces, maintain order, and then, when things became stagnant, incite chaos to induce progress. Their goals aligned with my own, and so I saw no reason why not to offer the aid of Kragzeet to such individuals, especially when they offered to preserve stability in the region and offer resources that we so desperately needed at the time. As I got to know more of their members and leadership, more and more their goals seemed to align with my own. Edmund is an outlier, and his followers are zealots and fanatics. More than once I have discreetly done away with some of his more ardent supporters, but that does not seem to bother him. Perhaps he enjoys it. But no, he is the largest threat to my continued allegiance with Eclipse.
So what's disposing of him would actually be a favor to you.
Indeed,
And what of the rest of Eclipse?
I must say I'm not fond of you continuously dismantling those that I have spent more than one lifetime growing and fostering.
She gives a
But,
slight smirk when she said lifetime.
but I can safely say that the collision course you and your allies have set yourself on will inevitably bring you to my doors. What you decide to do then is your own choice. I will see what you decide to do at such a time. Do not mistake me. I do find the killing of Eclipse generals to be disheartening, to say the least. But as far as killing my principals, you so far have only disposed of two. So I can't say that it's necessarily a bad thing. The fact that Samael, as well as why must the abjuration principle be so forgettable? Oh well. The fact that the illusion and abjuration principles still live under your service and you contain their necklaces is fine, as well as the fact that two of my apprentices still draw breath and have offered their services to you is yet again fine. The convergence of the necklaces is a theory that I am interested in, a hypothesis that I had created long ago to see what the potentiality would be for a merger of such soul crystals. However, I will say that if you continue to dispose of principles, it will be difficult to reconcile your nature with my goal.
I think we're a bit heading in that direction anyway. She pulls out the divination necklace. Are you aware of what I've been doing with this?
I am aware that you have been squandering its potential, yes.
Ah, that's what you call it. So what did these people... Where did you get these people? What potential... What... Why were they so wasteful that you ultimately decided they had no future potential? other than this form? Or were you not smart enough at the time to see such a decision and were merely experimenting?
At the notion that the souls in the crystals have potential, she kind of like cocks her head almost like curiously, like as if your question confuses her. And she's like, I don't understand potential. There was none for these individuals. They possessed no aptitude for magic, no greater brilliance in their minds, no talents in their voice, no strength in their bodies. Nothing of exemplary levels, anyway. They were civilians, some with families, some without, some sticking to the streets, others dwelling within mansions, wasting their potential. She says this with venom. So I gathered them with promises of home, food, safety, wealth, power, security, anything to really draw on the pettier and baser emotions that mortality possesses. And I turned the only asset they had into power, their souls.
You've talked a lot about wasted potential. The ability, the fact you haven't disposed of Urion, despite there being a possibility that someone could have risen up through the tower, even though you saw no current potential at the time. And yet these people, she holds the necklace up a tiny bit higher, these people were deemed to never have potential, which is fine. I won't say that these people, anyone in here, would have ever had the aptitude to reach such expectations. But to dispose of such a possibility of future potential, not necessarily from them, but the generations they would produce down the road, seems wasteful to me.
When choosing individuals to produce the crystals, many factors were taken into effect, but no lineage that we looked at ever seemed like it would produce anything valuable beyond more souls. So they were carefully chosen and selected for the process. And that's not to say that we still engage in such activities. Once we had gathered enough material for our crystals, we were done. If situations happen, such as your activity, or the burning through of souls, as Kilkias was so fond of doing, despite having the capacity of magic to achieve his own goals, then we select more from amongst the population of each respective tower to suit the needs of the crystal, but it is always a calculated cost.
He Yuza laughs ever so slightly. I was not expecting to find you to be like this I knew you were logical. I didn't realize you lacked such emotional intelligence, though. And I don't mean that in an insulting way.
Of course. Each
You claim
person's
that these people had no potential, and yet they've accomplished quite a feat. At least this necklace has.
Do you refer to your gathering of allies? The mermaids, the dragon, those such things?
Oh, absolutely not. I accomplished those myself.
Mm.
I'm refer I'm referring to pulling a soul back from Pandemonium.
She seems intrigued by this. She goes, "And when did you achieve such a feat?"
Now remind me, the player, it was right after Gilcaius, right?
Uh,
When we learned Trappit and his wife and son are in Pandemonium.
yes. Where a fragment of Trappet's soul is in Pandemonium, along with uh, Kino and Marianne, and then following that, uh, after Trappett had rejoined the Silver Dawn, he made a deal with Ball to become his servant in exchange for Marianne and Kino's freedom from Pandemonium. And so Trappett's soul was now reunited as one, but he is now trapped in Pandemonium, whereas Kino and Marianne were freed.
Right. I'm not necessarily referring to that. I'm referring to the time uh I can't remember who it was. It might have been Rando.
It was Rando.
Uh yeah, who Yuza had to go and pull back so he wouldn't get trapped in there or something. It was a while ago. Hard to recall exact details. But basically the souls made sure that nothing happened to Yuza's body and she had a tether to be able to pull her and Rando back.
Right.
I'm just making sure my timeline is correct, and that was right after
Yes,
Kokias, right?
that was right before Kilkais. That was during the trial of the Shadow Beast.
Okay.
When Rando finally attuned to the Shadow Primordial.
Right. Right. We found that in the Shadowfell.
Mm.
uh, I was in the Raven Queen's domain. Woman. Anyway. During excavation into Kilkias's, let's call it experiment, since
Mhm.
it was unsuccessful, we encountered a certain creature that one of our associates had been seeking to seek power from. Things took a slight turn for the worst, and that individual found their soul barreling towards Pandemonium. I made a frankly risky decision. I probably should not have attempted that, but ultimately it proved fruitful. I chose to throw myself into Pandemonium after him. Souls within here acted as acted as an anchor, allowing tethering me back, allowing me to retrieve his soul, and allowing us both safe return from that place.
Hmm.
I don't think you can call. I don't think you can call that anything other than potential.
You refer to synchronicity. It was a fundamental thing that I considered when I was making the necklaces. Kilkias had his own means of going about it, but at a certain point, it, when the wielder of the necklace either assimilates with souls within or asserts control and dominion over them, certain feats can be attained that defy the standard potential of one wizard. What you describe is not something that I would consider potential, but an expected outcome for my creation. The necklaces were means to achieve such feats.
So you've accomplished similar things in the past.
I have wrenched souls from other dimensions, yes. I will admit there is quite some thrill reaching into Avernus and plucking a soul that is bound to a devil.
Oh, well, it seems I'm not going to make any headway in that area. So let me just ask you this. You said that one day, if we continue on this path, eventually we will come knocking at your door. How do you see that outcome playing?
Hmm. I would say that depends entirely upon you and your compatriots. I have not yet lost. Ah, it's so weird to say such a word, considering the works we endure. Faith that you and I will be of a similar mind at some point and work towards the same goals. So, when you come knocking at my door, I have no doubt that you can see the potentiality of all that I have achieved. However, the commander, as he is called by the Asimar, will probably see the necromancy that I am working on, immediately decide that it's time for my death, and lop my head off. Oh well.
I can't
The
say I disagree with that.
Oh, how disappointing.
No, I meant merely in the fact that that's what he would do.
Ah, yes.
It does sound like him.
Yes. The ASMR will probably follow suit, being like, oh no, the souls that have been wrenched from mortal vessels, how they have been twisted and perverted against the will of God. Smite. The druid is a bit of a different situation. I would say that given his own dalliances in necromancy, he might see the potentiality in what I hope to achieve. However, given that the moral influences still seem to weigh on him in certain directions, it depends on which way the commander leans that I feel like the druid will follow. Unfortunate that one of such power and potential as him is led like a dog on a leash, but
And what of the Goliath? Or, uh, orc. Is he orc or half orc? I can't remember.
he is a half orc right now.
Half orc, okay.
But
I
he
just,
well he did take the potion and turn himself back into a Goliath. So technically, he is a Goliath again. Um,
okay.
but that is all like current events. So she's just like, but I would just say that she is definitely aware of like what Avok's whole thing is. Nothing really gets past her. Whether or not she shared that information with Eclipse is differential. I would say probably not. She's just like, hmm,
One
confusing.
arguably most harmed by the experiments of Eclipse and subsequently you.
True. However, this one is grappled with the idea of vengeance and justice and doing what is right. I assume he'll probably go along with the commander's call, given that he considers himself a stout friend and loyal companion, a bro, as the members of lesser intelligence call it.
Please do not use that word again.
She laughs at that, uh, and is just like, he will most likely go along with whatever they decide. Their staunch belief that Eclipse must be destroyed is understandable given their personal experiences, but a waste considering the longer term goals that the organization could achieve if it weren't for a few difficult cases.
So ultimately, you think this group will come to love your head off.
Yes. Whether or not that will actually end what I do is laughable, but such people always tend to find the swift solution to be the easiest. They have no mind for longer plans. They see evil and they say, strike first. Although evil and good are merely just constructs, things we assign attributes to based on our own moral failings or leanings of societal trapping. Communal things that beasts have used to determine threat.
But ultimately, you don't think we could stop your existence permanently.
I don't think they could. You, on
He
the
gives
other
us
hand,
another smite smirk at that.
you, on the other hand, you're like myself. You have a mind for the long play. So, whether or not you decide that my existence is irredeemable, or just another potential asset to be used, depends on whether or not I shall live through the day, I guess.
In which way do you believe I'm leaning right now?
She seems to like study you and look you over. She's like, hmm, hard to say, but if I were to hazard a guess, a hypothesis, I would say that while I feel we are fundamentally similar in our thoughts on wasted potential, I feel like you view my existence more like cancer. Something akin to a malady, disrupting what one would consider to be the idea of true knowledge and education, the further advancement and progress. You feel that my ways, I would say, are backwards. That the she gestures the necklace. expenditure of life in pursuit of my goals was a miscalculation, one that you would not be so apt to repeat. Given the frequency of the smirks across your face in our conversation, I believe that you don't necessarily see yourself as superior to me, but feel you are cleverer in some regard. I cannot deny that we are different, but to say that you have outthought me is a gross understatement.
Oh, I believe no such thing. If I did, your head would be on the floor. Gives a slight giggle.
Hmm.
I honestly thought I had outsmarted you, and my goal was your elimination. I believe you would be gone right now.
Is that so? And pray tell, in this conversation, what have you gleaned about my means of return? How would you destroy me if it were your goal?
Now, why would I give away such knowledge that could still be used to my advantage? After
Hmm,
all, you've given me nothing that could be used against you.
true. The only difference is that I have been quite forthcoming.
Well, you haven't really asked many questions.
No, but I have answered every one of yours honestly, have I not?
Honestly, is those of our kind are not really capable of discerning truth from facts, at least with accuracy. So to say you've been honest in all your answers, I can't confirm. However, I'd say it is likely you've been mostly truthfully forthcoming.
She smiles.
That, of course, doesn't mean I'm going to answer any question that you ask me.
Hmm.
There are many things I wish to know about you, but several I don't believe you would answer. Without asking the right questions, of course.
Hmm. I don't put much stock in belief.
I figured.
You are always free to ask. You never know the answer until you try. I will say this, I see no reason to not be forthcoming with you. We are individuals of a scientific mind, after all. After all, disclosing information and being able to stop what is already in effect are two different things.
Very well then. Where exactly are we?
We are currently in the Necromancy Principles Tower. Specifically, the true tower, not the one that
I,
you claimed in White Plains.
I figured I toppled that thing. Wait, I can't remember if I toppled it or just repurposed it.
If I remember correctly, like repurposed was probably more likely. I know that you like rated it and then offered a position to any necromancy students that wanted to serve you. They
Yeah,
have.
right. I think I made a port. Yeah. I can't imagine I
Yes.
uprooted the entire city.
The
Yeah,
the
okay.
true tower. It is still within vicinity of the tower that you succeeded in taking, but would be harder to find, as much like the transmutation tower, I decided not to build up, but build down. Easier to hide the more esoteric experiments. After all, the nature of necromancy is as above, so below. So, would it not make sense for two towers to exist?
I'm ashamed of myself for not seeing that earlier. I will learn from this.
But for any consolation, with the other principles, only one tower exists. Well, not entirely true. After all, your divination tower is a singular physical building, but within is towers within towers. The original divination principle was quite proud of that.
Do you ever see yourself passing of natural means?
Of course. I have done it
So
several
then what
times.
I meant without returning.
Ah,
Passing on as a normal person would.
no. That is not something that. I wouldn't say it's something I haven't considered. It is, but it is not something that I haven't prepared for. There's still much work to be done. I assume that if I ever decided to pass of natural means, to no longer return to my cloned simulacra, that it would be when my work is complete. But that is many, many centuries off from now.
Well, I think we've been dancing around the topic for long enough. What exactly is what exactly does the completion of your work look like to you? What is it you want to accomplish in this life more than anything else? And I say this life as in the collective, not this individual one.
Of course. To call it perfection would be such a mm, underwhelming thing, but it is the closest to my true aim. There are many different creatures, individuals that exist in the world, and each of them have evolved to possess certain traits that ensure their own survival against most things. My inevitable goal is, as with the amulets, convergence. The adaptation of all of these survival traits into a singular form and being. And that is it. It is the culmination of all schools of magic, I feel. For it, the living would be the living construct of transmutation. It would be able to adapt and secure itself. It would be as necromancy, undying and unyielding, with divination, great foresight and insight into its own ability, illusion to take on any form that it sought, or any way to preserve its own lifespan. As with conjuration, it could travel freely wherever it wished, or draw from power beyond this plane. With evocation, it would be able to unleash great power that normal beings could only fathom. And as with abjuration, it would be resilient, to a number of different means.
So your goal is to create a god. No, I don't think even that matches the description.
No, God would not match that description. Gods are fickle, gods are flawed, gods are beings that, despite wielding great power, don't use it for much beyond inspiring worship in other or offering power. They use their means to preserve their lifespan, encourage their worship, and achieve what they believe to be cosmically superior goals. But the way I see it is they're no different than us. They fight, they squabble, they grasp power that is not theirs. The only difference is the scale on which they do it is much larger than our own. No, I seek to create an individual that will be beyond all such things.
And what would you want it to do? Or do you plan on that ultimately being you?
I do not plan on it being me. My If the purpose of my goal was to study all things, advance my work, reach the pinnacle of intellectual prowess, and create a creature that is the essence of perfection, why would I sully such a creature by placing my mind within it? That would be creating something imperfect, something flawed. I would not want to introduce. She gestures to herself. My vessel is imperfect. It ages, it feels pain, it has emotion, although in different depths than I would say you experience or your friends. To add a piece of myself to a creation of mine that is, for all intents and purposes, perfect would be to add imperfection to it. No, its goal is merely to live as it sees fit, to pursue whatever aims and goals and purposes it so wishes. I cannot hope to fathom what a perfect mind will deem worthy of its time, but once it is created, it is free to expand beyond my initial hopes for it.
I see.
Although,
I
if
think
my
that's no
experimentation
good.
with you has yielded any results, I would say that if I do succeed in creating such a perfect creature, it will far exceed my expectations.
Do you honestly think you would know a perfect creature if you saw it? Do you believe that an imperfect creature could really comprehend perfection?
Comprehend. No. Conceptualize. Yes. I have in my mind what I would view a perfect being to be, and all I can do is strive to achieve that. And if it views itself as imperfect, then it would then be its goal to strive for its ideal perfection. If my work yields an imperfect being, but one of great potential, then that being can carry on my work seeking to create its perfection, and so on and so forth until eventually a perfect being does arise. One that I cannot comprehend, but through generations of work, my conceptualization will form.
I see. I believe that concludes everything I want to know about you. Frankly, I honestly thought I would have more questions. You're far more simple than I expected you to be.
The flaw of many great wizards is that they feel that they must have complex answers, complex equations. Complexity is boring. When you get down to the root of it, simplicity, fundamentals, are the most important thing for any good wizard to have.
Then I suppose if you don't have any other questions for me, she waits. If no response, then I
She
suppose
seems
I
to
will be taking my leave.
she seems to be thinking of a question.
Okay.
She finally settles on one. Only one. Are you ugh, not that word. Are you content? Not specifically with this interaction, obviously. There seems to be much that I have not provided, much that is to be desired that I guess I did not satisfy. I mean, are you content in the sense that people would call happy, but such a word is just disgusting.
First of all, I don't think you can disappoint when I had no real expectation. I couldn't. It's hard to fathom a creature that creates your existence, their motives, their wants, the way they think. Just as it's difficult for mortals to comprehend what goes through a god's head, it was difficult for me to determine what exactly you were. I merely came to put a definitive stamp on that question. As for the happiness, in the little I've learned of emotions, and my own at that, over the past 6 years, I think happiness is fleeting. Not in the sense that it's not worth the time. It is a enjoyable thing to experience when it happens. But like any emotion, it fades with circumstance and the environment. It never truly stays. So if you're asking if I am happy in general, no. many things poke at my curiosity for me to be happy with my level of knowledge. The world is in such chaos that I cannot be happy with the state of affairs. Too many people are exterminating potential for me to be happy knowing I have the ability to stop it. Does that mean I will ever reach that definition? I cannot say. Probably not. The world seems to always turn, and I don't think such happiness is possible without taking away free will entirely. So I can only speak of happiness from moment to moment. Right now, I'm content with what I've learned.
She smiles at that and then turns and picks up her clipboard and begins working on her notes again. And she just turns to you and just goes, "Well, you seemed to be on your way out, so I bid you farewell. And I guess we will see each other again whenever you all decide to break down my door to destroy the great evil."
Please don't forget that the knocking on your door you're expecting, it just happened. So I would hope this is an indication of more of what to expect next time. I haven't ultimately decided how I should deal with you. It's the closest word I can come to. So I guess I guess as much as we don't like the use of this word, have faith.
She smirks at that.
At the very least, I'm sure. At the very least, I'm betting Galleon might have a question he wants to ask you. But anyway, we both know we'll be seeing each other again. So until then,
Be well,
have a
number
good.
13.
Was that on purpose?
Was what on purpose?
After everything you know about us, about me, surely you know what I call myself.
I'm aware of your identification that you have given yourself.
And yet you chose to identify me as the designation assigned in the experiment.
Yes, that is what you are to me.
I see. Be well then. Undetermined fate. She poofs around.
All right. I will go ahead and wrap the recording there.